Imagine this scene. A person gets up in the morning, drinks his coffee, and reads the paper. Then, instead of driving to work, as in the days before and after COVID, he drives to the hospital, checks in, and proceeds with an operation to remove an organ destined for someone he doesn't know. What would you say about that? Hi everyone, my name is Eliada. I live in Hashmonaim. It's a small town situated halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. I'm 44 years old, married, and have 6 kids. I've worked in CyberArk for the past 4 years, and I have 2 working kidneys. One is working in Hashmonaim, and the other is working in Tel Aviv. And as you've probably figured out, I gave one of my kidneys to a complete stranger about 2 years ago. Every organ donor has his own story. And today, I'll share my personal story with you. Almost 8 years ago, I woke up one morning, like usual, but I received a WhatsApp from a close friend saying he just heard about a serious terror attack where some man was stabbed to death. For some reason, I recall that this WhatsApp message really disturbed me. You should know that during this period in Israel, we had no small amount of terror attacks directed by radical Islamists against Israeli Jews. A few minutes later, I was in my car, going to work in Jerusalem. On the way, I picked up a hitchhiker. While driving, we heard on the news that somebody had just been stabbed to death in a terror attack, and that his name wasn't released because the next of kin were not yet notified. I said to my hitchhiker, listen to this. Another family has been hit. Minutes later, after arriving at my office, I received a telephone call that changed my life forever. The someone that was murdered that morning was my younger brother. My brother's name was Eviatar, and he was 6 years younger than me. He had a big heart, and he loved to make people happy and laugh. From a young age, he was crazy about acting. As he grew older, he decided to be a professional actor, and he also became a medical clown. Over the years, he even appeared in a few Israeli TV series, frequently as a comedian actor. The morning he was killed, he was on his way to meet someone related to his work. What happened that morning struck me deeply, and it threw me into the deepest crisis of my life. I lost my little brother to a terrorist. In the trial that followed, the terrorist admitted that he killed my brother only because my brother was a Jew. What could I do? How could I go from here? As part of my dealing with this terrible trauma, I decided that I must do whatever I can to be a force for good and light in the world. I started to volunteer intensively. In parallel, I began donating blood platelets regularly. Platelets assist with the function of blood clotting. As opposed to a conventional blood donation, where almost a half liter of blood is taken from the donor in about 10 minutes, in a platelet donation, you are connected for about 2 hours to a machine that takes your blood, extracts only the platelets, and then return the rest of your blood back to you. Platelets are very valuable. Treating leukemia and cancer patients. At the same time, I met a good friend who came to the synagogue carrying a water bottle, which is unusual. I asked him, why the bottle? He told me that 3 days previously he had donated a kidney and that he was supposed to drink a lot after this operation. I was surprised because even though I had heard of kidney donations, I never thought that I would meet somebody who actually did it. After he told a bit about the process and how the kidney's recipient's life was changed, I knew in my heart that someday I would also donate a kidney. So, how do our kidneys function and what is kidney disease? Kidneys serve to remove waste and excess fluid from the blood. Also, they serve to maintain proper saline levels and proper blood pressure. They fabricate blood cells and vitamin D in the body. In one day, about 180 liters of blood pass through the kidneys, which produce about 2 liters of urine. When someone has kidney disease, the normal functioning of his kidneys is seriously impaired. One of the most prevalent kidney diseases is PKD, which is polycystic kidney disease. PKD is an inherited disorder where clusters of cysts develop primarily within your kidneys, causing them to enlarge and lose function over time. The cysts are non-cancerous round sacs containing fluid. They vary in size and can grow very large. Kidney disease is treated today by dialysis or by kidney transplants. When undergoing dialysis, the kidney disease patient must know that dialysis is an artificial method of filtering the blood. Because dialysis is artificial in place of the patient's kidneys, the patient is completely dependent on machines, perhaps forever. Dialysis is typically performed 3 times a week in 4-hour sessions, leaving the patient exhausted. Unfortunately, there are frequently additional complications, and the mortality rate of dialysis patients is high. The dialysis patients are limited to 2 cups of liquid per day. There are strict dietary limitations, for example, no potassium or phosphorus, not more than 2,000 milligrams of preserved food, no brown rice, dairy products due to the calcium content, bananas, avocados, tomatoes, oranges, etc. About 2 years later, I saw some advertisements about sick people who were looking for a kidney donation. At the same time, I came across a brochure from an organization called Matnat Chaim, about which I'll talk in the next slide, where I read amazing stories about heroic people who donated their kidney to a stranger and saved their lives. A voice inside of me said, it was time to act. I was sure that there was someone in the world I could help. So I called an Israeli association called Matnat Chaim, which in Hebrew means the gift of life. Matnat Chaim works with the Israeli Center for Transplants, and it serves as an interface between donors and recipients. Matnat Chaim was founded in 2008 by Rabbi Yeshayahu Heber, who unfortunately passed away from COVID a year ago. Rabbi Heber himself had a kidney and was initially treated with dialysis. During dialysis treatment, he met a young man named Pinchas, who also had the kidney disease, and the two were companions for some time. One day, Rabbi Heber told Pinchas that a kidney donor was found for himself, the rabbi, and he told Pinchas that he would also help him to find a donor. You must understand, at that time, about 13 years ago, kidney transplants were considered very unusual. The rabbi posted notes on the bulletin boards and other places and was gratified when a donor was finally found for Pinchas. The procedure to prep Pinchas for the transplant was started. However, very, very sadly, Pinchas passed away about 2 weeks before the scheduled transplant date. Rabbi Heber took Pinchas' death very hard. He decided that same day, in 2008, that he would dedicate his life to finding altruistic kidney donors, which would serve to do away with the kidney transplant waiting list, which then stood at about 800 people. The first year of his activity yielded 4 donors. In the second year, there were 8, and in the third, there were 45 transplants. There have now been a total of over 1,000 transplants since Matnat Chaim was founded. And through the leadership, leadership of Rachel Heber, the late rabbi's widow, awareness of kidney transplants is now well established. From its modest beginnings over 13 years ago, today, Matnat Chaim helps about 200 kidney transplant donors and recipients every year. Even more dramatic and significant, Rabbi Heber succeeded in his goal and succumbed to COVID shortly after the 800th transplant. So, he fulfilled his life dream of taking care of the 800 people waiting list. Israel, in addition to its definition as a startup nation, apparently leads the way in terms of kidney transplants. For example, in the UK, with a population of 60 million people, they had only 130 donors in 8 years, while in Israel, with a population of 9 million people, we've had over 500 donors in 8 years. So who was my kidney recipient? I had known that he was a 58-year-old man whose name was Yitzchak and that he was from Tel Aviv. But I met him for the first time in my life about an hour before the operation. He told me he had a polycystic kidney disease and he had been in dialysis for 8 years. He appeared pale and weak. I thanked him for the privilege I had to be able to help him. I changed clothes and walked to the operating room, knowing all the way that I was doing the right thing. Later, I woke up in the recovery room, a bit groggy but smiling. My wife and daughter held my hand and told me that the operation proceeded okay and as planned. But let me stop for a second and go back in time, okay? How do you think my wife reacted when I told her about my crazy plan to give an organ to a complete stranger? And how did people around me react when they heard I'm going to do this? I was going to do this. My wife was completely shocked and mostly afraid. Consider you are a father to children and you have a family. Isn't it dangerous? She said. I shared with her the research I had done, and especially information about the risk management, which indicates that the chance of saving a person's life is greater than my risk in the operation. She and I spoke with professionals, and she slowly came around to my crazy approach. My kids also embraced the idea, and this was gratifying and touching to me. There were others who told me, okay, so you're nuts and you want to go in for an operation like this, but at least save your kidney for another family member if, God forbid, there is a need for it. And there were others who just stood there with their mouth open, just not getting it. I heard a lot of arguments, advice that simply turn out to be untrue. And I will explain. In an operation such as the one I underwent, the chances of any complication are very low compared to most other operations. In addition to the fact that the operation is performed laparoscopically and with a rapid recovery, the chances of success for such an operation are very high, about 99%. And the recipient's new kidney starts functioning immediately. I can tell you that Yitzhak confirmed to me that while he hadn't urinated for 8 years, he didn't stop passing water after the operation. Here are a few more interesting points. When the donor and recipient are matched up, there must be a match of blood type and additional characteristics. It's not a given that a donor and recipient who are relatives are a good match. Once I've given a kidney, all members of my nuclear family receive priority for an organ transplant if, God forbid, it's necessary. When someone is interested in donating an organ, he must undergo no small amount of physiological examinations, blood, sugar, nephrology, etc. And he must meet psychologists and with various committees, with the common objective being to make sure that the donor is capable of and understands completely what he is doing. This all serves to protect the donor. In other words, if you've in fact passed all of the examinations, which in Israel almost take almost a full year, you can rest assured that you are healthy. By the way, it took me almost 2 years because the nephrologist who examined me said I was too heavy to be a donor, and if I wanted to give a kidney, I had to lose 22 pounds. I came back to her after almost a year, after I lost 26 pounds. After my donation, I have an annual checkup, which is covered by the government. I get discounts on healthcare insurance for 5 years and other benefits. So why do we have 2 kidneys? Maybe it's for survival? No, definitely not. When there is any problem with your kidneys, both of them are affected. So maybe it's for load balancing? No, again. Typically, in healthy adults, both kidneys together provide 260% output. It's more than needed. So my conclusion is that we have 2 kidneys so that one can be given to someone else. Try to imagine that because of this good deed, there'll be another person who can live a normal life, to see his kids going to college, to be present at their weddings, and to live a healthy life. The absolute majority of donors report that after giving a kidney, they feel that their lives have improved. I also feel that way. I returned to my favorite athletic activities within 6 weeks after the operation. I feel very happy and have no way to explain it. Yitzhak, who was very sick, received his life as a gift, and I, who lost a brother, received a brother as a gift. Do you ask me if I recommend donating a kidney? Look, I believe that everyone can contribute. I don't think that everyone is capable of taking the journey I took. But I can say that I enjoyed every moment of this journey, and that my life today is much, much better. If from this lecture, one person says to himself, tomorrow, I'm going to do something good for the world, then I've succeeded. More so, the world has succeeded. And if there'll be someone who decides to donate a kidney after this lecture, I know that the life quest of Rabbi Heber, may he rest in peace, continues in full force. I believe that very soon, dialysis machines will be a thing of the past, that the unfortunate people who needed them will have received their life as a gift. 8 years ago, I lost my little brother, and this was the greatest breaking point of my life. On October 14, 2018, I donated a kidney to a complete stranger, and this was the highest point in my life. In this slide, you can see the graduation photo of all the donors of 2018. And if you don't find me here, I will help you. This is me here. If anyone's interested in more details as to how to donate a kidney anywhere in the world, here is a contact information about Matnat Chaim. Also, you are invited to contact me directly via email or WhatsApp, whatever, after this lecture, and I'll be happy to give you more information. Thank you very much.